30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and
Well,
you're watching AccessTV.org.
Good morning again. This is Jonathan Small, host and producer of Face to Face. And Face to Face is one of two different programs that I have the option of hosting every single week at AccessTV.org studios in downtown Hartford. And Face to Face is a show that's designed to ask the guests the hard questions and give you, the viewers, the answers and information that you deserve to know. This morning on Face to Face, I have a very successful former senior NBA executive. He has been very instrumental in establishing a professional basketball team, and he is currently working on another chapter of, attracting and putting together a major league baseball team. The guest this morning on Face to Face is no other than former senior NBA executive, co-founder of the Orlando Magic NBA basketball team, no other than Pat Williams. Good morning, Pat. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Jonathan. Nice to see you, and thanks for the invitation.
It's my pleasure, Pat. Before we get into our main topics of our discussion, could you kind of let people know a little bit about yourself and background briefly before we get into our topics?
Well, I've spent a lifetime in sports. I knew very early in life what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, and I had an opportunity to work at that. It fell short, but I spun off into the front office of sports. And for 60 years now, over 60 years, that's what I've been doing, first in professional baseball, and then over 50 years in the NBA, and now back in the baseball pursuit. We're trying to bring a big league baseball team here to Orlando in Central Florida.
Well, Pat, I mean, your track record of what you've accomplished in professional sports is one of the most impressive in, let's just say, sports in general. I mean, the projects how you was able to put together the 1983 NBA Philadelphia 76ers championship team, being the general manager at that time, really stands out as one of the greatest NBA teams in the history of professional basketball, and you deserve a lot of credit for putting that team together. But your background in professional sports really, I would say, took it to a different level when you was able to co-found the Orlando Magic NBA basketball team, which was an expansion team. What exactly, for people out there unfamiliar towards what a co-founder has to do and consists of, could you kind of let people know exactly your role as a co-founder in putting together the Orlando Magic NBA basketball team?
I've been the GM of the 76ers for 12 years, from 1974 to 1986. I'm getting a little restless. We'd won that title in '83, and we were in the playoffs every year, and we'd had a great run, but I was getting a little restless. And the ultimate challenge in sports, I think, is to start up your own team, an expansion team. I'd met a businessman here in Orlando. His name was Jimmy Hewitt. And Jimmy kept asking me about would I come down, leave Philadelphia, and come to Orlando and try and put shoe leather to this dream of bringing an NBA team to Orlando. It was a wild dream, really. Orlando back in the mid '80s was not that big a city. It really wasn't. It is today, but it wasn't back then. But Jimmy was relentless in his pursuit, and finally he said to me, this would have been the April of 1986. He called everybody Bubba. He said, "Bubba, listen," he said, "if you'll come down and head this up, we'll go forward. If you decide to stay in Philadelphia, I'm just going to drop it. I can't do this by myself." So he forced a decision, and I made the decision to go for it. It was a huge gamble. There was no assurance of anything, but we packed up our family, moved to Orlando in the summer of 1986, June of '86, and immediately started to rally the community. Tried to get the community fired up, tried to get them to put deposits down on season tickets to a team that didn't exist, where there was no arena at the time. I mean, it was a long shot, but the NBA bought in. They had a big expansion movement going on at the time. And in April of '87, they decided to add 4 new teams, Miami, Orlando, Charlotte, and Minneapolis, St. Paul. They took all 4 of us as expansion teams. And we played our first game in the fall of '89. We had a beautiful new building that had just been finished. And today, at this point, the Magic are in their 35th season. It's quite a story, really, when you think about it.
So, Pat, when sometimes people say on the outside that a professional sports team, whether it's an NBA basketball team, Major League Baseball team, NFL football team, it's really, I'm not going to say that they say it's not a big deal, but they may wonder, what is it really going to do for a particular city? What is the pros and cons of having a professional sports team exist in your city? And certainly it's a successful business when you look at a professional team. If it's winning, if it's selling out season tickets, and it's generating revenue through other different mechanisms. But for people on the outside who don't really understand or realize the impact or influence of, in this case, let's say the Orlando Magic, could you kind of let people know a little bit about what the Orlando Magic has kind of brought to the city of Orlando?
Well, in many ways, it's put Orlando on the map. Professional, I think there are 2 things that give a city its personality: the arts and professional sports. I think those are the 2 things that really put you on the map. Can you imagine New York City without the Yankees?
Right.
Can you imagine Chicago without the Cubs or the Bears? What would Boston be like without the Red Sox or the Celtics? It would be pretty boring, and not much community enthusiasm. Professional sports team really brings a community together. It's a binding force, particularly when things are going well with that team. And so Orlando now is a big market, 17th largest media market in North America. And without the Magic, we wouldn't have any real personality at all. I mean, Disney is a huge force here in Universal Studios and all, but it's the Orlando Magic really that put Orlando on the map, the international map, and made such a huge difference in this community. And I think we're big enough now and strong enough to be a Major League Baseball city, and we're working on that now to see if we can bring that about.
Okay, well, let's kind of make that transition, because obviously, I mean, this is a big chapter in your life again, but you have a lot of previous experience in knowing how to put together a business deal, a business proposal towards Major League Sports. And now with the latest efforts on your part and I guess other people trying to bring Major League Baseball to Orlando, what exactly is a typical day when you're trying to put together the proposals, meeting with the mayor, meeting with the city council people, trying to figure out where would you build the stadium? It might seem on the outside that it's not that hard, but by you being involved in it, could you let people know exactly what you have to go through towards this next chapter?
Well, as we're doing this, we're going on the basis that Major League Baseball, almost 5 years ago, announced that they did want to add two teams at some point and get to 32 teams. There are 30 now. And as far as we can tell, there are about 6 communities that are exploring this or examining this or trying to bring Major League Baseball to their community. We're one of them. You've got to have, I think, 4 things really going for you. Number one, you've got to have the marketplace. And Orlando keeps growing, to the point, thousands of people keep moving here every year. The tourist base is fascinating. So we've got the marketplace. Secondly, you got to have a stadium. You got to have a ballpark. We've been very fortunate to have a magnificent ballpark designed for us. We found the location, and we think we can pull that off when the time comes. Third, you've got to have people running the thing that know what they're doing, that have experience. Professional sports is a unique niche. It's not like any other industry, and fortunately, we have that kind of experience to do this. And fourthly, and most importantly, really, you've got to have an owner with deep pockets who can afford to do this. And we're continuing to search and trying to find that person, trying to find that group who can do this. Professional sports is not for the wealthy these days. It's not for the very wealthy. It's for the extraordinarily wealthy. The price of teams, the price of everything is high. And you've got to find an owner who has deep pockets, has the personality that baseball would be happy with, join their club, the kind of personality that would fit Orlando, Florida. And this owner's got to like sports. Professional sports is not for everybody, but you need an owner that has an interest in doing this and has a feel for it.
But sometimes, Pat, I mean, this is a real major business decision, and you're competing with other cities throughout America, if not North America in this particular case. And one source will indicate with Orlando having such a close proximity to Tampa, who already has a major league baseball team, would it be feasible or sensible to bring another baseball team in that close proximity? But I would say if you have the Chicago Cubs, you have the Chicago White Sox, they're playing basically in the same city. If you look at the New York Yankees or the New York Mets, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Los Angeles Angels. So you already have professional sports teams that play very close proximity to each other. But why is this argument that you think is being thrown on some levels that you already have a team like the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, so why would you want another team so close together?
Well, Jonathan, first of all, let me just say this. They're called the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, but they're really the St. Pete Rays. St. Pete is a good fit further from Orlando than Tampa, a lot further. And so we've got to keep pointing that out, that if you're going to drive over, for example, and want to go see a ball game in St. Pete, from almost every spot in Orlando, you better set aside a minimum of 3 hours from your house to your seat in the ballpark in St. Pete. You better set aside 3 hours. It can be a very tough drive. And so when you look around the country, you mentioned a little bit, but let's go further. Philadelphia to New York, close. Philadelphia to Baltimore, close. Philadelphia to Washington, close. Baltimore to Washington, close. Pittsburgh to Cleveland, close. The Cubs to Milwaukee, close. You can see all over the country that baseball cities are a lot closer to each other than Orlando is to St. Petersburg.
Mm-hmm.
So we can overcome that argument.
Right.
And those the closer the city, the more intense should be the rivalry.
Mm.
And we think Orlando is a separate market. It's not the same as Tampa Bay, not the same as Miami. Having a third team in Florida, with the population of this state, which is growing every week. I think Miami, St. Pete, and Orlando would be a marvelous rivalry. It would help the gate in those two cities. We think we can draw 3 million people here. With our tourist space and the growth of this community. So we're very optimistic that we have a strong argument. Now, the other cities that are after it, and Nashville's in the hunt, we understand Portland still wants to try to do this. Salt Lake City has made an announcement. We don't know about Charlotte, North Carolina. They don't seem to be doing anything. So we're ready to compete and go under the microscope. When that time comes, we think we've got a compelling argument.
Well, Pat, on your part personally, I mean, you go into this type of business deal knowing that you've already co-founded and put together a professional basketball team. So you clearly have that on your resume of knowing how to put together a deal. So does that take somewhat the pressure off of you a little bit, knowing that you've already been able to establish a professional NBA basketball team in Orlando, let's say even as a selling point when you're trying to meet what someone looking to buy? Well, I don't know how, in this case, would the person have to buy the Orlando Dreamers or buy a franchise? Because it's not an already existing team. So what's the process also, as another question, is what would you have to, the owner would have to do? I mean, does he have to buy a franchise or create a particular franchise in this case?
Well, we're waiting for baseball to reveal more details. They have said, as I mentioned, that they want to add 2 teams and have a 32-team league. But at some point, they have to put a price tag on an expansion team.
Mm-hmm.
And we know it's not going to be cheap. Way back 35 plus years ago, the NBA's price tag as an expansion team was $32.5 million,
Mm-hmm.
which we thought was just an absolute gouge job. But today, when NBA franchises are worth $2 billion, $3 billion, $4 billion, that 32.5 price tag looks like a bargain now. But back in the day, we didn't think it was a bargain. So we're waiting to see what that price tag will be. And that's going to have a big impact on cities that can go forward or will go forward. So we don't know the schedule and when baseball wants to do this expansion. It may be some years down the road. I do know this, that all these cities involved have got to get ballparks built if they want to be contenders. And that's going to take time. So I don't see this happening real quickly, but we're in it for the long haul here.
Well, Pat, you had mentioned earlier that Orlando already has a professional baseball. Well, not a professional, but Orlando already has a current baseball stadium that exists.
Well, we've got, you could play. It wouldn't be perfect, but Disney on their property has a beautiful spring training facility. It's a wonderful location. You could play there. It's not perfect. I think baseball they don't want to go forward with this until stadiums are built. So that's going to take years. I think the better part of 3 years to build a major league ballpark. And so if baseball decides to say, all right, these are the 2 cities, and we're going to give you 3 years to build a ballpark, well, you're not going to be playing your first games for quite a while down the road. And so we understand that. And we're prepared for the long haul. But we do know this, that there's enormous interest here. We have about 13,000 people that have expressed interest in season tickets, and without a team, without any promises, but they've let us know that we want to be considered for season tickets. Well, if those 13,000 each want 2 seats, well, there's 26,000 seats for you right away in a 45,000 seat ballpark. So this community is ready to add another major league team, and we're eager to dive into it when more details come from you.
Well, Pat, at what point? I mean, I know you may not know the exact time span, but do you have any idea exactly when the Major League Baseball is gonna make an announcement or a decision? Which 2 cities, I believe in this case, is going to be granted a baseball stadium, and well, not a baseball stadium, but let's say a baseball league. And then once, let's just say if Orlando is selected as one of the 2 cities, what would be the next process? Like building the stadium, getting someone to buy the team, but wouldn't knowing exactly when Major League Baseball is going to make a decision towards which 2 cities that they're going to grant a franchise to would be a big hurdle to pass. And then the next parts of the developments, I would say, would it be much easier then from that stage, or would it still be a tremendous challenge?
Jonathan, let me just say this. We don't know what baseball's timeline is, so we're waiting to hear that. But I do know this, that their main concern is who is your owner, and what are his capabilities. How are you going to go about getting a ballpark built? And those are the 2 main things baseball is concerned with. They are also with who's going to run the club and what are your capabilities there. And so we're I think the best way to answer it, we're just in a waiting position right now. But we're patient. There's no rush here. As time goes on, we continue to look better here as a marketplace. We're the 17th largest media market in North America. Now we just passed Miami last year. And I think in the years ahead, not too far down the road, we're going to pass Denver, we're going to pass Detroit, we're going to pass Minneapolis, St. Paul. And it won't be too long before Orlando is sitting here as the 13th largest media market in North America, with no end in sight. Wouldn't shock me down the road if we end up in the top 10. Think about that for a minute. We're the largest media market in North America that doesn't have a Major League Baseball team. We're a larger media market now than I think 9 current Major League cities. Cities like Cleveland and Cincinnati, Kansas City, Baltimore, San Diego. We're a bigger media market than all of those cities that I just mentioned. And the growth continues, and I know baseball will be looking at that very, very carefully.
So again, Pat, you said, I mean, in an ideal, perfect world, if you're able to find someone that's willing to say they have the money to buy a professional baseball team, whatever the amount consists of, and then you have some mechanism or source available to build a Major League Baseball state-of-the-art stadium, whether it's privately funded or paid by taxpayers, that would be a big selling point to Major League Baseball if you have those 2 areas already put together from what you had just said.
Oh, Jonathan, without question. I think baseball's 2 biggest concerns in doing this is who is your owner, how financially capable is he, what kind of a person is he. But baseball is still a very conservative sport. There are 30 owners in this baseball club, 30, and they're very careful who they let into that club. So that owner will be carefully examined. on all fronts by the baseball world. And secondly, yes, you've got to have a ballpark. You've got to have a state-of-the-art stadium.
Hmm.
And we've worked very hard on that. We've got a wonderful location, we feel, and got all the renderings, which has been very exciting down here. Announced them and revealed them. And now we are standing by, waiting. What is baseball going to do, and when are they going to really get serious about putting shoe leather to this idea of
And also keep in mind for people out there, the cost of a major league sports teams today is very expensive. We're talking in the billions. And then to build a state of the art stadium, you hear reports all, not all the time, but you can look at some examples of some, and this is mostly NFL stadiums, but still a baseball stadium could be just as expensive, in the billions. So this is not a cheap projects when you're talking about getting an owner to commit towards a particular baseball team, and then getting some source of how you're going to build a baseball team. But I think at the last stage that people might overlook is the return on your investment can be very lucrative in many different areas. Would that be fair to say, Pat?
yeah, that's all that's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
The price of major league sports teams does not go down, and owners who came years ago, spending in the millions, now their franchise is worth in the billions. I'm not sure they could have made that kind of money doing anything else. But it's going to take a man or a group, individual with deep pockets, and who has a love for baseball, a love for sports, and a love for Orlando, and really wants to do this. And we're seeking that person. He's out there somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and continue to track that guy down. And we're just waiting to meet him, just waiting to find him. That's going to be a wonderfully exciting.
Pat, how does the mayor of Orlando and let's say some of your elected officials feel about bringing Major League Baseball to Orlando? Are they kind of on board, optimistic, or are they a little bit skeptical, waiting? I mean, what's the whole process now when you get into the elected
Well,
officials?
listen, the main thing, Jonathan, on their minds, and it's on our minds, is who's your owner going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be a huge day here for the mayor, for the city council, the county mayor, a huge day for us.
Mm-hmm.
So they're standing by, eager to see how this plays out, and we are too. And when we find that owner who really would be committed to doing this here, we'll take him to meet all the mayor and all the city council people and county commissioners. Yeah, it'll be a big deal, and we're eager for that to happen. So I'd say that the government officials are standing by, waiting and watching, just like we.
Pat, the same process that it took in your involvement in bringing the Orlando Magic to the National Basketball Association, are you kind of going through the same process, what you're currently doing, trying to bring a Major League Baseball team to Orlando, or are there some differences?
Well, there's lots of similarities. Basketball was a much faster timeline. For example, we announced in June of '86 that we were going to go for this. 10 months later, basketball announced that they were taking all four of us. So we had exactly 10 months to get on this. If we had started a little bit later instead of June of '86 and maybe gotten started at the end of the summer of '86, we probably would have been too late. So that was a much, much faster timeline, much faster. Baseball made their announcement about expansion 4.5 years ago, and they haven't revealed any more details. They did say back then that they would really pursue this expansion thing after the A's and the Rays ballparks were resolved. Well, the A's are moving to Vegas, and the Rays announced this fall that they have a ballpark plan that they think is going to work. So I think expansion is the next information that baseball will reveal at some point.
And again, Pat, I think you mentioned it's like what, 4 teams maybe in total, or 6 teams. How many teams in total are competing for the 2 franchises in Major League Baseball?
Well, Jonathan, we certainly know that Nashville is, and I know the people in Nashville that are working on this. Out west, Portland's been after it for quite a while, and then not too long ago, Salt Lake City, Utah, popped up and made an announcement that they want to be considered as a Major League Baseball city. There may be others, but I'm not really familiar with what might be going on. So we're definitely aware of Nashville, and I think they would take one city east of the Mississippi and one city west of the Mississippi. That's just a rough guess, but it probably could be that way. But we can't really worry about these other cities. Our job is to make our package so attractive and so compelling that baseball is going to say, "Wow, we need that Orlando market. That part of what we do. Baseball is just going to mean too much." For the future of baseball to have Orlando in our club. So we're when the time comes, and it will come, when we need to present all that, we'll be ready. But without an owner, you don't have anything to sell. So we're right back to what we started with. So anybody listening in today wants to get into this and potentially own a Major League Baseball team, we're here. We're here.
Yeah.
Give us a shout.
Well, I'll tell you, Pat, if people knew a baseball team was definitely going to come to Orlando, and, I don't know what 1% would be worth. I would assume 1% of ownership would still be considered a lot of money, and that probably you would be looking for more than 1%. I think you might have some people highly interested. But you said something key, though. You're saying in this business model, you can't worry about what other cities are doing or what they're trying to do. You just have to make your city, Orlando, so attractive and stands out. And the biggest 2 hurdles that you mentioned also, and we keep talking about, is getting an owner and getting somewhat of a state-of-the-art stadium. But Orlando seems to have many other areas already in place with a real successful airport, a nice, attractive downtown, many different things to do. People are moving to Orlando daily. So you have tremendous selling points already. Maybe the last 2 biggest selling points is getting someone to buy and be willing to buy a professional baseball team, and getting someone really to invest in that stadium would be the last 2 biggest selling points to go along with what you already have in Orlando.
Well, that's true. As we started the chat, Jonathan, I mentioned the 4 things you must have. You've got to have the marketplace. We've got that. Secondly, you've got to have a ballpark. Thirdly, you've got to have a front office that knows what they're doing. And number 4, you've got to have the right owner. And so that's just a summation of where we are, and we'll keep working at it. We're working at it every day, and plug it away. That's how you go about this. Like eating an elephant, one bite at a time, right? So that's how we're going about it.
Well, Pat, obviously, I appreciate you willing to come on, particularly AccessTV.org network. But I always like to ask the guests towards me ending a particular show, and I definitely appreciate your, willingness and what you were able to bring to this discussion. If there's any last words that you would like for people to know, either about yourself or what you're trying to do towards bringing the Orlando Dreamers Major League Baseball team to Orlando, feel free to express those comments.
Jonathan, I think the best way to conclude it is even though we don't have a team, we do have a name. We're the Orlando Dreamers. And people have said, well, what does that mean? Well, I think the answer is we're the city of dreams here. It all started when Walt Disney decided to move east, and he built the Magic Kingdom here in Central Florida. And he had big entertainment dreams, and they've happened. And then soon thereafter, Arnold Palmer came here, and he had big golf dreams. And then we had an astronaut who was from Orlando, John Young, and he had big space dreams, and he ended up walking on the moon. And then an educator, John Hitt, came here, became the president of a little commuter school on the east side of Orlando. UCF is now the second largest university in the United States, and been growing. 80 million tourists last year came with big vacation dreams. So everything in this community is about dreams, big dreams. And we have big baseball dreams. So we think Dreamers is the appropriate nickname for us. Really makes sense for what's happening. Good to be with you. Thanks for the invite, John.
It's our pleasure here at AccessTV.org network, and I definitely wish you the very best of luck with the future plans of bringing the Orlando Dreamers Major League Baseball team to Orlando. And I will keep an eye and stay abreast towards what's going on with this particular project. And again, it was a tremendous interview to have you on AccessTV.org network and face-to-face talk show. And you have a very blessed rest of your day as well, Pat Williams.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good to be with you. Take
right.
care now.
You're welcome. Okay, this is Jonathan Small. I had just hosted and produced this edition of Face to Face. Special guest, former NBA senior executive for the National Basketball Association, co-founder of the Orlando Magic, and currently working as co-founder of trying to bring a Major League Baseball team, the Orlando Dreamers, to Orlando, Pat Williams. Very insightful, interesting, I thought, informative discussion. And as I say every single week, and people should know this by now, I always try to keep one show balanced. So there's a very strong chance next week that it'll be an all about you show. But again, if something out of the ordinary comes about and it's a real special topic that I want to talk about, I won't hesitate to bring a face-to-face edition to AccessTV.org network. But until I see you again, for people out there, have a very blessed day and keep the faith. Thank you.